Hello, and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I didn't mess it up then.
Yeah. And even if you're
Last 2
not
weeks,
that grounded right now, and you just
uh,
desire to be rooted and grounded in your spiritual work, this is a podcast for you too. Like, you don't have to stop listening just because you're like, I'm not feeling grounded today. No, it's okay. We get it.
we have the time. Don't feel grounded when we come on here. When we say
Yeah.
grounded people, we're not talking about you being grounded. We're talking about
No.
we're rooting all of this spiritual woo-woo-ness in reality, tangibility, like things that you can actually
Practicality.
interact with.
Yeah.
Yes. As opposed to being like, my third eye told me XYZ. Like, that's
Mhm.
not going to be helpful to you. So
Yeah. We're going to
that's
give
what
you
we want.
evidence for that third eye stuff. So
Yeah.
we still believe
That's
in third eye stuff, but it's just,
yes.
we like to explain how and why, and go a little deeper to make sure that you have no reasons to doubt your own abilities and other things that you're researching.
Yes,
So now
absolutely.
that we've like reiterated our mission statement, let's talk
Uh,
about where we're at. Well, there's a lot of Capricorn energy going on right now. So I'm not surprised that we're going to give you the details. We're going to tell you why you should trust us. And dang it, I have integrity because that's Capricorn. By the way, I'm KristaLyn. I'm an astrologer.
oh yeah, I'm Emily. I'm a psychic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're here talking to you about stuff. It's been a weird energy week. It's just been really, really weird. Out here, we got like 3 feet of snow, which isn't a huge amount of snow, but it's really wet. So it knocked over like every tree, and that knocked over like every power line. So it was like very not fun. And then
Oh,
with that, a bunch of idiots ended up like crashing their cars on the main road. So then like school got canceled. Like
oof.
it's just been an adventure, and it's just the energy has just been very, very odd. And I know a lot of the country is experiencing storms and like very intensity. I was actually out of the area. I was at a soccer tournament, and it was like over an inch of rain on the day that the kids were playing soccer outside. So it was
Yeah.
just absolutely miserable in that respect too. So it's just
Yeah.
been really funky and weird weather-wise. And whenever that is funky, it's a very strong indication of how a lot of us are feeling or interacting with the energies around us, because the predominant energy is the unpredictability of the weather.
Mm-hmm. And to all of our Patreons who are used to the episodes coming out a day before they normally would, that's why you're getting it a couple hours after usual this week, because we needed to reschedule because unpredictability. And, it's funny, that is to me, I would say that's so Uranian, but I'm marking it out to Mars on this one.
Yeah.
Mars and Mercury, believe it or not, has entered a pre-shadow for their next retrograde.
No, I reject that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting
right now.
one.
That's
It's going
just
to be
not
an
real.
interesting. We'll talk about it.
Sorry to be a jerk, Mercury, but no, I deny your truth.
No, when Mercury goes retrograde, as Mars is trying to finish a retrograde in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury, and you get this double Mercury or this double retrograde energy. I was just talking about this with another friend of mine on their Instagram live this morning about how to handle a double retrograde kind of retrograde when the ruler is also retrograde. Good Lord. So it will go a lot like that sentence went.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. No, I'm too much. It's already going on. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to say Mercury's not going into retrograde again for a while, and we're just not going to deal with it. It's just that totally works, right? Denial.
But in the real sublunar sphere that we exist in, Mercury goes retrograde about 4 times a year. This is the 4th. And so we get to start the year off with a bit of a retrograde period. And that gives you plenty of time to look at your New Year's resolutions and play with them, and then decide if you really want them, and then actually set ones that you can stick to as you experiment. So that's the bonus. We'll talk about that more as we get closer. Now we're still at the winter solstice, or the summer solstice if you are in the Southern Hemisphere. Hi, guys.
Yes. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot during this episode, is kind of traditions, how to honor, ways we recommend honoring the energy of this particular solstice. Because the solstices are really big deals. Like equinoxes are big deals, but solstices are much larger deals, especially historically in the human culture as people. And so now we're in this space of very heavy modernization, and not all of us always pay attention to the solstices as much. And we really want to call that energy back to it, because it is really important to us as beings.
And if you have seasonal affective disorder, solstices are also really important to you, because you note this is the shortest day of the year, or this is the longest day of the year. So for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the shortest day of the year. It's going to get longer from here. Huzzah. But that's what it is. It's really the sun reaching a point in the sky where, thanks to the tilt of the earth and everything like that, the amount of daylight is at its least for a winter solstice, but the sun will actually stand still for about 3 days in the sky. It's still going to go up and down and rise and set, but it will stay in the same position in the sky as compared to veering northern or southern. And then it will veer in one direction or another to make the daylight shift more towards whichever one you are increasing, which for us is increasing daylight up here in the Northern Hemisphere. So the sun will start dipping and give us a little bit more time and spend some more time with us during the day.
Which will be lovely.
Yeah, I'm very lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. This year specifically, I even told Weston of like, we're making Christmas less of a thing because we surprised our kids with a trip to Disneyland a couple weeks ago. So the whole like gift giving and like big thing, we're making that kind of downgraded. But I did talk to Weston of like, I really want to upgrade the solstice. Like there's stuff we do on the solstice every year anyway, and I have with the kids since they were itty bitties, that we have traditions of. But I'd like that to be more of a celebration day than Christmas for us. So we're working that out on those details because I think it's important.
Yeah, I really have been kind of catching the same vibe because I view Christmas, obviously, as someone who grew up, you know, as a Christian and as an individual who to this day still really works closely with the energy of Jesus, but also has done some research into the history and, you know, the facts behind what this time of year and why this time of year was chosen for all of these holidays. I like to honor that it's this seasonal time of year where we're welcoming light back into the world. And so the meaning behind many of the holidays that are going on right now is the same, and it is based around the season. So I like to keep things a little bit on the seasonal, honoring just every day right now is a little bit different, is quiet, is stillness. And there's something in the air that we're preparing for this rebirth kind of renewal energy of the sun, getting its light back a little bit. And that goes across a lot of different faiths and creeds. And so I really like the solstice and incorporating as much of the archetypal significance of that, really making an talismanic image and expressing that through sort of a drama of creating the pomanders or all of those things, or setting the house up to honor the time of year that it is. It really is, like I said, kind of talismanic. I do a lot of astrological magic, but we talk about images of things, and you pull images of things into the, you know, whatever this time of year represents. So you take your evergreen trees, you take your citrus fruits, or your what's the herb, the seed that we put in? Clove. Thank you. I had fennel in my head, so I knew that was wrong. But you take those things and you just honor that this is where the energy is at, and I'm among it. And that's a really beautiful thing. So you can do that throughout all of these holidays. And the solstice is the astrological day that really marks that change. That was a long-winded thing, but thank you for holding with me.
No, absolutely. I mean, thank you for expressing it. I think it's super important. So before we dive into more of our, like what we do or things that you can do to honor it, or historically other cultures did to honor it, whatever we're talking about in that zone, do you want to talk about the energies at play with the planets this solstice specifically, so everyone has like a grasp on that?
Boy, do I. So there's
I know, it's like there's many things that happening.
The sky is busy right now, but one of the things that I've been saying with some friends is like the sky is it's tripping over itself in a lot of ways, because there's a lot going on, but it feels a little discordant, especially with Mars in Gemini doing his retrograde. So what we're looking at here is just day by day, really quickly. We have on the 17th, so a little bit before the solstice, we do have Mercury trining Uranus. So you can expect some like high electric energy in the air, and very charged energy. This is going to be easy to make impulsive decisions. It's going to be easy to like the great archetype here would be like you impulse buy a new car. because Uranus is the impulse, it's radical, it's change, it's progress. Mercury is connective and communicative and travels. So impulse buy a new car is the image that can kind of embody that, which as astrologers, but also as writers, we understand how to create like an archetypal image to express a feeling, which is what this is. And so it's also a really interesting time right now with Mercury being in Capricorn, Uranus being in Taurus. Check your pipes. And I've already brought this up with someone, and they actually did check their pipes in anticipation of Mercury going retrograde in Capricorn, because Capricorn is the buried stuff. It's the infrastructure. Mercury is the connectivity. So with Uranus, you might have a pipe burst. And Mercury is preparing to go retrograde. So right now would be the time to catch that before it busts during retrograde. And that way, at least you can see how you'd actually be mitigating, not erasing, but mitigating some of the situations of Mercury retrograde in that space. So thinking of things along those lines and other things that come to mind when you think of that kind of general topic, it's a really good time to be doing that. Then on the 20th, Jupiter, who has been in Pisces for a little while. And honestly, people are saying, Jupiter was in domicile in Pisces. It should have been this really wonderful thing, but everything else going around as well. Jupiter has just kind of been, I've heard people explain it as like the sloppy drunk. So things have been a little bit hard to grasp and hold on to. And we've been choosing, or even just subconsciously kind of trying to tune out from things. So we've been taking that Jupiter and Pisces energy and saying, you know what, I'm just going to disassociate from this for a little while. And now, though that was helpful to help us get through some stuff, now Jupiter is moving into Aries. So we're kind of picking up where our minds have been healing themselves, I feel. And you'd probably pick up on this energy as well, but our minds have been saying like, there's a lot going on. I'm just not going to look at it for a little bit because I need some peace of mind. Now we have this rest enough that we can engage more. So Jupiter comes into Aries now, is in his own terms on the 20th, and spends some time in his own terms, which is a very strong place, but in fire triplicity. So we have this creative, igniting energy that says it's time to get up and move and make and, create something and do something. And we have the abundance of energy to be able to do that. And with Jupiter being in Aries until May, there will also be a period where all the planets are direct from the middle to late January through, I believe it's April, if not longer. All the planets will be direct. So we'll have tons of forward motion and progress to be made. And we had a bit of this last year as well, but Jupiter was in Pisces. And if you remember about March through April, I think it was February through March and April, we had this period of all the planets being direct and there was just so much happening. So we're going to come into a little bit of a whirlwind again, where all of these things that we've been feeling are stagnant will unstagnate or, stop being stagnant and we'll move forward. Destagnate, is that, I'm like, is there even a word for that?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just pulling it out of my ass.
Yeah. And then finally on the 21st, we do have the solstice, which is exact on the East Coast around 4:48 p.m. ish. You can adjust that to your time zone, but that's when the sun comes into Capricorn. And this is going to be square Jupiter, which is why Jupiter is meaningful, because sun comes into 0 Capricorn while Jupiter is in 0 Aries. So they form this square with each other, really calling us to be accountable. Again, Capricorn, we want to be accountable for our actions. We want to take responsibility and initiative for what's happening in our lives. And I think that really goes along well with the energy that we tend to get this time of year as we anticipate New Year's and all of that stuff. We're starting to say, okay, get our stuff together. What are we doing? What's the goal? How can I prepare for this? And the ruler of the sun right now is Saturn in Aquarius. So it's thinking long-term, thinking broad, like high level perspective, and saying, while we're experiencing, even at the same day, the moon will oppose Mars retrograde. So that kind of ties in a personal sense of, I feel like I've been standing still. I want to try to move forward a little bit. I'm getting ready to do that. So it's a season of self-assertion and self-reliance, knowing that if you want something done, you have the power. It's not your responsibility to do it yourself, but you have the power to do something about it. And so the affirmation I came up with is, I'm capable of anything that I need to do. And I would recommend practice listening to your gut, that fiery instinct that impulse instinct that just says, I know this is right. I know this isn't for me, like whatever it is. You can do muscle testing, but learning to trust yourself and building the skill of trusting yourself is going to be really helpful. And then on the 22nd, Venus trines Uranus. So it's sudden changes, possibly in relationships, because you've decided these things. You might decide, this no longer fits my values. I'm going to let it go. And that could be a person, place, thing, or idea.
Interesting. I like that energy. It's intriguing because this week when I posted like my energetic forecast for the week, so this was this past Monday when you guys were listening to this, I basically was saying like, hey, you're going to have a lot of things you want to do, but you won't have the energy to do it. So like, this is the planning week. And then next week we initiate more of that burst of energy, which is exactly what you're talking about with your Jupiter, which I just love when that lines up so well for us.
I always like watching your forecasts and then thinking, oh, yep, that's Jupiter. Oh, yep, that's this. You do a great job with reading the energy on that one.
Oh, thank you. I just got excited. I was like, oh, cool. So that's why I was like, and I will tell you what, everyone is pissed off this week because they're not able to do all the things that are stacking up that they need to do, but there's just not the energy to do it. It just doesn't exist. It's not there supporting anybody. So if you're feeling that, empathy towards you, totally understand.
We
also,
see
yes,
you, we feel you, we know you.
Yeah. But that's great. I really like the energy of the solstice. I really like the energy that we're bringing into the new year. And I really, really like when all the planets are going direct. Unlike last year, when that energy came in, it was kind of like things felt out of our control fast, like so speedy and like, oh, we were just like running to catch up. This one feels more like we're in the car going fast, which I
well, so during that period, it's also worth noting that March has all planets direct. And as they are marching forward, we're going to have Pluto make their first dip into Aquarius. They will retrograde back out for the rest of the year and then come back in again in 2024 to stay. But we're going to get that first preview of a whole new generation of Aquarian energy. Saturn's going to get out of Aquarius. So I can see why that really appeals to you as well with an Aquarius Saturn return, right? So it feels really much more in your control. Yeah. But it will dip into Pisces now, and it will stay in Pisces. When Saturn goes retrograde, he's not going to come back into Capricorn. So he's done. Sorry, he's not going to come back into Aquarius. I almost threw myself back to my Saturn return there. He's not going to come back to Aquarius. He's staying in Pisces to begin a trek through there. And then also Mars will finally get out of Gemini, which is also appealing to you in your chart.
Very appealing for me.
And we'll move into
Cancer. Basically, I cannot wait for March. I can't wait for March for a million different reasons. I'm also going to Rome in March. But the energy, if March could be here now, I'd be really thrilled. It's not, but I am counting the minutes.
Most of the time when someone messages me from like home and they're like, how long did you say I have to deal with this energy? I'm like, listen, everything's going to be better by March, and nobody wants to wait for March. And I get it. Neither do I.
I've been waiting for March for 2 years.
January should help get yourself through most of January. And then when we get into March, everything is going to, like, whether you like it or not, this is the image that's in my head right now, but it's like plunging a blocked drain. And that final moment where the drain is like, okay, it drains. So
yay, that's fun.
I don't know why that's the image in my head right now, but that's
all
the
good.
Only one
I feel like it's
I'm
applicable.
asking for other ones, but they won't give me any more.
Nope. That's it. That is the image. At least I just watched the new Grinch the other day, and she does it with like in her sink with like an arrow, like, and so that's the one that came to my head. So mine is prettier.
I hope that did for you. I'm going to watch that one so I can replace the image in my head. But I'm also remembering, like, I try to take these things seriously ever since we talked back in 2020. And you asked me about the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And I was like, oh, it's going to be like a sneeze. The image they gave me was a sneeze. Okay.
COVID requires sneezing.
I certainly brought it on. But now we're in the after the sneeze. So one of the things that I'm noticing about 2023 is this is a year where we finally pick up and begin moving into what comes next. So there is that.
Which I'm excited about. And we've said it before, is like, I think we're in our final stages of grieving right now, which is part of the reason everything is so hard leading up to the solstice. I think the solstice starts to move it, but then really when we hit January, middle of January, we're really going to be like, Okay, which is what I'm holding out for. So I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
saying that because I really feel that energy.
It feels relevant to the solstice as well. This whole period of mourning, Capricorn is old age. But we're also coming into this time where we're preparing, and our souls and our spirits and our energies know this. We're preparing for something moving forward. We're preparing for something to carry on. And we've spent 2 years, a little bit more than that, even just in this space of what is going on. And if you think about, like, I watch cheesy Christmas movies because I enjoy them. I cannot bring myself to watch one that was made before 2020 or 2021 because that is too idyllic for where my headspace is right now, And if you look at a lot of movies right now, they're really acknowledging, even in wholesome ways. We talked about this during the cozy episode last week or the week before. They're really acknowledging that we all have big feelings, and they're not fuzzy feelings. We're looking for more fuzzy feelings, but right now we're all dealing with residual angers and sadness and these denser emotions that we have a right to deal with, that we should deal with and process, because life is going to move on, and we can move on gracefully with it if we allow ourselves the time to process. So if you're feeling this, and we all are, but don't be hard on yourself and make it even worse. And don't let it turn into a deep trauma. Let yourself go through the process and just know, like, let us give you permission to not be okay. It's totally fine that you're mourning something and that your body feels like it's mourning something, but you don't know what it is. This has been a rough couple of years. You're going through it. Your body is helping you. Your subconscious is helping you. You can tune in, ask your guides, ask your energies, ask whatever kind of energies you connect with, deities, all of those things, and just say, hey, how can I do this with grace and ease as much as possible? Or what else do I need to know? I had a conversation last night with random energies just before I fell asleep that helped me understand more about, like, the body, which was interesting. I didn't know I needed it. But we're coming into a time of year where people are getting very self-conscious about their physical selves. It's a time of year where we're all like overeating for Christmas, and we just had Thanksgiving. So everybody's thinking about, in New Year's, I'm going to lose weight. So I was thinking, like, how do you help people with that? And got some insight on that as well. If you want to hear more about that, Patreons, you can vote or ask questions about it in the Patreon, whatever. And
you almost got there. It's okay.
You can also ask me on TikTok, and I'll go into that more.
Yeah, we can totally do an episode on the body to start off the new year, though. I think that might be a really cool idea.
Make peace with your body.
Yeah, let's do that.
A lifelong journey.
It is. Speaking of that, the patrons voted on this episode topic of our winter traditions and solstice stuff. We were going to touch on it, but not this deeply. So they voted on it. We appreciate that. So that is why we're doing this. We also, one of the traditions we're talking about in this episode, which we're going to talk a little bit more, is making pomanders. Yes. And we're going to do a bonus video for our patrons of us making pomanders, where we're going to go way more in depth on that. So if you want to see that, please join our Patreon. We have multiple tiers. And you can see that, or vote on future episode topics, or ask us questions, all that stuff. We appreciate you. Also, Forgotten Storyteller pitches are still open. We only have a couple spots left out. They are very much filling up. So if you have that idea, or if you're like, you know what, my goal for next year, I would wait till after the solstice, to be totally honest, to send us this pitch, because you're probably going to have the energy to do it, which is totally fair. Like, we hold space for that. But if you're like, next year I do want to write the book, or I want to bring back my creativity, or something about this is drawing me to it, I'm not lying when I say this next cohort is going to make huge impact with their work. The energy is like flinging them forward in a slingshot way. We've been talking about this for months between the two of us, of like, this next cohort's going to have some energy backing them up. And so feel free to send us a pitch, see if you're part of it, feel it out. Let's hop on a phone and chat about it. Like, that's what we do. So please feel free, submit it, forgottenstorytellers.com or ninthhousepub.com, either one. Yep. And you can go there and submit your pitch, and we want to read it.
It's super easy. I love to tell people, like, pitch sounds really intimidating. It's not. We actually made a form. You just fill out the form and you're good to go. Yeah, very much so. So some of the traditions that we do for winter solstice. So I started honoring the solstice back when I was a very active practicing Hellenic polytheist. And I practiced Hellenismos for years in a very heavy way. And that is what has informed some of my still traditions
is based on the way that they honored the solstice. Now, with Hellenismos and in the ancient Hellenic tradition, it was a 3-day celebration. The day before the solstice, the day of the solstice, most of the time they would either stay up all night or wake up to see the dawning of the sun, as it now was going to expand the days. And then the day after the solstice, cleaning and making sure everything is open and ready, and you're starting everything very fresh and new with that. Lots of eating, big eating. There's some very interesting practices that go kind of along with it. But one of my favorite solstice practices, which I still do, is making a pomander, which we've talked about. So what that essentially is, and the way at least Krista and I use it for the most part, is you get an orange or a citrus fruit. So it can be a tangerine or an orange or grapefruit or whatever you want. I've done cuties before, like little tiny tangelos, just because that's what I had available. But you get an orange and you have cloves, like whole cloves, and basically you put the cloves into the orange until it's most of the surface area is essentially covered. You want to cover the whole dang thing. And then you hang that up, you put that in a place of honor, and you keep it all year. And then at the next winter solstice, you burn the one from last year before you make your new one of this year. And it's all about intention setting. It's about renewing your energy for this next cycle. It's about getting grounded and really anchoring into earth. It smells so lovely while you do it. It's like citrusy, and the cloves are all spicy, and it just like brings you present into your body. And me and my kids do it, and my husband do it with, like, we'll listen to Christmas music or we'll have it on TV or something like that while we make them all together. And then we hang them in a big chain, almost like a garland that hangs next to the fireplace where all of ours are connected till the next year. And we string them on some beads and it looks really cool. But we've done this for years, I think, since the kids could do it. So since Lee was 2 and TJ was 3 and Shadow was 4, I think is when we started. And it's really impactful. It's just a really fun call to kind of the ancientness and magicness that is being a powerful, wonderful being that you are. So Krista now does it too.
Yeah. Yep. I absolutely do. And we did it last year. My spouse and we did it together and watched like a Yule log on the TV. We had a fireplace, but we didn't trust the fireplace. So this year we might actually light our fireplace because we're in a new location. You can't tell, but I have moved. And so I also this year, because I didn't have like a fancy place for it or a special place for it. And I don't like that, as someone who literally gets up every morning and like talks to planets, I wanted to have a set space for this that was intentional and that I could be reminded of it throughout the year. I found this really awesome bird feeder and it's just like a triangle made out of clay, and it's got a stick or a pin that goes through it. And you're supposed to put like a soot cake on it, so that you just spear the soot cake in the bird feeder and it becomes a bird feeder. But like, what if you speared an orange? So that's what I'm going to be doing, where the orange will have an actual place and I can hang it or set it somewhere. And so you can get really creative with how you go about that. Last year for me, it was just in its own fruit bowl. And that was nice.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff you can do with it. I also always recommend on the solstice, especially the winter solstice, either I really like doing it the day after or the day, the day of the solstice when the days are starting to get longer. Do clean your house, cleanse the energy of your house, whether that is via sound, whether you're just rearranging things, dusting things, whether you're just setting the intention of like, this space is clear now, whether you're doing, any sort of smoke clearing with incense, not white sage, anything like that, not Palo Santo. Yep. That's really good. Cinnamon on your doorstep. I know that sounds weird and on your door, but that is a very big magic cleanse thing. If you like sprinkle that on and then sweep it up, don't leave it there and track it through your whole house. That's not the goal here. You sprinkle it on and have that intention, cinnamon and salt, and then you can clean that up. And that is like cleansing the energy of anyone who walks in, basically. Making anything that is like talisman like for you with this energy of this new year. So not just the pomander, obviously you can, but even if it's just like, oh, I'm going to bind some feathers together with this beautiful rock that I love, and I'm going to put this on next to my door or in my bedroom or something like that, that just encapsulates the energy of this time. Super impactful to have just around to remind you of this fresh new beginning sort of energy that we get with the day after the solstice.
Yeah. And if you have any, I'm actually intuiting this one right now, I'm going to do it more this year. my precious little corgi baby girl just jumped on her little bed, which is adorable. So if you have animals in the house, it's really cool to just sit with them for a little while and realize that there's this companionship and this connectedness with you and the world. You know, we built houses for ourselves, but it's important to remember a house is a shelter and it's not disconnected from nature. It's one of the things that when I was growing up, it was always like, there's a house and then there's nature. No, there's a house in nature that shelters you from elements and keeps you warm and comfortable. So also it's important to like light a candle and do cleanse your house because you're honoring the house for keeping you safe and well through the season. So having these connections with the energies and consciousness of the animals that share your space, of the walls and the furniture and things, you can set an intention and show gratitude to literally anything.
I had the opposite problem. My house has always been a part of nature. Growing up, now it's always been very natureful.
Yeah.
Much full of nature occurs in my house. Literally right before I flew out to Krista for the last retreat, that I was packing and I looked down and there's a frog in the middle of my kitchen floor and I was like, damn it, frog.
Yeah.
Why are you in here again? Like, I now have to catch you. I don't have an issue with the frogs, but I was just like, why right now? I like my hands full. I like set it down. I like grab the frog, like, stop it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in here, but like, stop it.
Well, and Emily knows I had such a relationship with spiders in my previous house that we would have conversations. And it was just like, listen, you need to find a safer place to be. And I now have like a weird connection with spiders, which I'm not excited about, but it's there. So at least I'm not afraid of them anymore as I was when I was a kid. But I would see a spider in our house and just be like, listen, I know, I get it. Like, you found a place to be and that's cool. I'm going to be using this room on such a time, you know, like in this amount of time. And I give them the feeling of it. That's when you're going to have to find a new place. Sorry. Like, but we had like snakes in our sink, which was fun. But yeah,
we get good at catching. There's squirrels. There's squirrels that live right underneath my feet. It's like between the layers of my ceiling. There's nothing we can do about it. It just is life.
Yeah.
So they're there. We got lots of squirrels. We have the great spirit of the forest that lives in my living room. He's a weasel, basically, and we did not invite him in, but he is around. He exists. In the summer, he's brown. In the winter, he's white. He hangs out. But yes, just a reminder, your house is very much nature. Very, very much nature in that space. The other thing, if you have access, if you live in a place where you have access to clean snow, like you just had a snowfall or something, if you make snow ice cream or something like that, so you're like kind of bonding with nature in that way, this is a wonderful time. Or even if you garden during the summer and you canned some stuff, or you jarred some stuff, or you have, like, my mom gives us copious amounts of pickles because they always grow way too many cucumbers and she makes pickles. We will be eating them on the solstice because that's like from nature that we cultivated ourselves. I also collect a bunch of pine nuts every year and save those. So I will be making those for the solstice as well, just shelling them, probably putting them in a pesto or something. I don't know, but it's something that you can gather from nature and have from nature. I also saw on, what's her name? She forages all the food. She's a vegan and she's the best on TikTok.
Oh my gosh. I don't know her, but I will.
Oh my gosh, she's the best. It's the greatest thing ever. Anyway, you can eat pine trees. I didn't know that. You can totally eat pine needles and stuff. That's a real thing. And so she made like a drink with them and I was like, cool, doing that with my Christmas tree branches, like cutting some off and making like actual drinks from nature in that way too. So that's another thing, but it's a perfect time for that. Reassessing your manifestations, just kind of getting connected with yourself. Yoga would be really cool. Stretching, not even necessarily a big workout sort of stuff. It's not so much that. It's not like push your stuff. It's like get comfortable in your physical space again.
Yeah. There's flowiness and getting centered and grounded and rooted.
Yeah. Also, something I learned this year is that a lot of other cultures make Christmas cake. That's like a big deal. And we've never really done that. So this year we're making Christmas cake on Christmas and I'm very excited. As a new tradition thing.
I've been reading there's an astrological magic text called Picatrix. And I've been reading about perfect nature, and there's actually an offering to perfect nature that's like butter and salt and all these things that like my mentor, when he did a perfect nature meditation ritual thing, actually combined them all into cookies. It's like, you could. So I might look into making perfect nature cookies. But also it's not like nature, it's nature, like all. the whole like mysteries nature, I guess. It's just the whole understanding of this, gesturing widely. But I also, I have a family recipe, and it's interesting to think as well on the solstice about ancestors or inheritance or lineage, and just your place in that, and doing something that honors, even if it's just the ancestral energy of the place you're in. But in my case, it's a family memory, so it's important in my present life. But I make these cookies that are just this recipe that I've adapted and stuff, so it's got a little bit of my spin on it. But it's really cool to just go through. My grandmother, who passed away recently, we had her write down all of her recipes years ago, and then just photocopied them in her handwriting into a little book. So we may go through that and check into that too.
Nice. I love that. One of my favorite ancient solstice traditions, which I love so much, it is a very specific Celtic tradition. And when I say specific, Celtic is not specific. When you use the term Celtic, it literally means all of the people from basically Ireland all over what used to be ancient Gaul, which is everything north of the Iberian Peninsula, essentially. So all of Europe as a whole. So when people talk about Celtic, it's not what we think of most of the time as modern Celtic. We're like, oh, ancient Irish people and ancient Scottish people. Like, yes, but I'm talking very specifically, yes, it was in this region, but it wasn't necessarily exactly how we think of it, Celtic now. So I was just like preface that. But it was an ancient Celtic tradition where everyone would put out their fires in their houses, and there would be a big bonfire in the middle of the town or the village. And then after midnight on the solstice, everyone would grab a log or a stick from that bonfire to relight their hearth fires to keep going throughout the next bit of time, the next year, whatever, however long they kept that burning. But it's like you start from community into individuality. And I always encourage that, especially during the solstice time, community into individuality, instead of approaching it as an individual first. And that can be, maybe you just commune with your guides a bunch and just establish that community better. We're having an ugly sweater coffee and pie party on the solstice this year, which is a combination of my friends really wanted to do ugly sweater stuff. I wanted us to get together for coffee and pie. So here we are doing that. Which is, kind of soul family stuff for us. We have a very tight group of friends. So we're going to do that. And that's going to be really fun. And just get to sit together and hang out and drink coffee and eat dessert and wear ugly sweaters and take fun pictures. And then kind of we'll branch off from there. And that's when we'll do our palmanders and stuff like that after the friends leave. So incorporating some of that energy. I mean, there's a lot of really cool ways you can bring community in. If you feel like volunteering during this time, that's a great day to do it. If you're like, I want to volunteer in a soup kitchen or whatever, which, I know a lot of people that want to do that around this time of year. Side note, they need volunteers all the times of the year. I'm very passionate about this. I actually have a video in my drafts on TikTok. I've been waiting to post on this because I had a very emotional experience about this the other day. And I feel like it's important, but I've been holding off. But anyway, that would be a great time to do it, is on the solstice as well.
Yeah. Cool. And also on the note of your brilliant point about community to individuality, that's going to be a hallmark energy over the next 20 years as Pluto does make that transition into Aquarius and really brings a new generation of people being born, sure, but we live that energy. So we actually create the environment that those people grow up in, which is what makes them the people that they are. So our society, transpersonally, our collective, world is going to be really understanding what group and family means in a new context. And we really do have to redefine that. Like, weird thing. And I would love to see some comments on YouTube or anywhere on this, but I've noticed there's a specific grocery store down here that every single one of their holiday commercials has been about the loss of a loved one and them not being there this year. Every single one, one's like about mom, one's about wife, one's about whatever. And I've been contemplating this, and it's because over the last few years, I know I'm not exempt, but I imagine there are a lot of people who feel this too. We've all kind of lost someone, or we've lost something. And it's kind of like that transition from childhood feeling. And so we're all trying to reclaim a little bit of nostalgia or whatever, but we're also redefining what connection means, because we have to. because the connections that we used to have, be them personal or energetic or whatever, or familial or, friendly, however you connect with people, that's changed. We've all changed. And so now we have to learn to connect in new ways. And that's going to be an interesting journey for us over the next 20 years or so until like 2040. So,
yes. One other thing that I always say every solstice too is before you go to bed, set an intention for your dreams and then pay attention to those dreams when you wake up. Whether that intention is clarity on life, whether you want to see guides, whether you want to have an astral experience, whether you just want to sleep really, really well and wake up feeling refreshed, whatever it is, but set an intention. It's a very important dreaming night, very important dreaming night, both the solstices, whether you're experiencing the winter solstice right now or the summer solstice, both are about this. Yeah. So definitely lean into that. And if you set the intention, then you have more control and it doesn't feel like you just get random information that you don't know what to do with because you have now intended to get some sort of something from this.
Yeah. You can even intend that you understand the next step in your process towards whatever your goals are. If that's enlightenment or alignment or happiness or something even more specific with businesses and things like that, whatever that is. Because remembering that the affirmation that came through for this was, I am capable of anything I need to do. What is that next step? How can you assert yourself and rely on yourself more, not in holding yourself responsible, but in understanding yourself and being there for you?
Absolutely. Well, wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here. We are very thankful and grateful for you. Thank you so much for listening. We've gotten to interact with a bunch of you in our Forgotten Storyteller interviews recently, and we really appreciate that.
Yes.
We also get to interact with you in the Patreon, which we love. So please check us out there. If you have your own winter solstice traditions, please either share them on YouTube comments. We would love to hear that. You can email us, forgottenstorytellers@gmail.com, or you can, if you're part of the Patreon, or you want to be part of the Patreon, you can share them there. We would love to hear from you and hear about your solstice traditions, and highlight those because they're all really important and we are still growing too. And so if you have other recommendations, we appreciate that very much. We would love to share that with everybody. Thank you very much. Again, if you have a Forgotten Storytellers pitch, please send it to us. We want to hear your idea. And we hope that you really embrace the energy of this solstice and come out with renewed energy as we wrap up this year and step into the next one, not astrologically, but calendar wise. It's going to feel really good. Yeah, absolutely. So take all of this energy and
go make some magic.
Oh, I'm going to say that was the best one we ever did.
Okay, good.
It's really good. Watch everyone be like, that was awful. What are you talking about?
And as always, let us know.
Okay.